I know, you like the beginning, the mid, and the end. It's your favorite meeting. I will try not to take up a lot of your time, but there'll be a chance for questions too. So the first slide that I have for you is our transfer in and out data, because I had told you that part of our strategic plan that we're monitoring how many kids transfer in and out of the district along with our student data. This year we are down from where we were last year. So last year, what is happening? Last year at this time, we had 116 kids that had transferred out of our district and 74 that had transferred in. This year, we're at a total of 139. So 91 kids have transferred in, 48 kids have transferred out. We do have a survey that parents can fill out when they transfer their students in, and we have a survey now that they can fill out when they transfer their child out. It is up to them whether they fill it out or not. Some of the other things that we're looking for is when they transfer out of the district, where are they going? And when they transfer in the district, where are they coming from? So some numbers that I have, which we have 16 kids that have transferred out for homeschool, and 7 of those kids transferred out in the summer. Of those 16 kids, only 4 parents filled out the exit survey. So that doesn't give us a lot of information or a lot of data to look for a trend to see as to why they were going out for homeschool. 25 students moved out of the district. 13 of them stayed in the state of New Jersey. 12 of them moved out of the state. And 6 students went to a charter school, collaborative, was it collab? Creative collaboratory, yes, thank you. And 1 student went to a private school. From the kids that transferred in, I looked at the homeschool, and 4 kids have transferred back from homeschool, but I can't tell you that they're 4 kids that transferred out, because 3 of them transferred in September, and 1 just transferred in January. We're going to take a look at DIBELS data first. These are the mid-year results, K through 6. Because of the way Linkit does things, the kindergarten is all the way down here to the right. I know it's out of order, but without cutting and pasting it to move it back. So kindergarten is all the way over to the right. At the left, we'll start with first grade. I highlighted 4th grade because they are at 57% of our students being on or above grade level according to DIBELS. When you look at grades K through 2, or K and 1, we're about 45% of the students being proficient. And looking from grades 2 through 6, we hover at about the 50% range, which is higher than normal for us, which is a good thing. This is historical data. So when you're looking at each grade level, so the first chart is kindergarten and first grade. This is our current first graders and how they performed last year in kindergarten at this time during the mid-year. So you can see last year in kindergarten, 53% of them were intensive, and now we're at 28% of them being intensive. As I always say, we're looking for the green bars to get bigger and the red bars to get smaller. The second one, The second chart here is your current second graders. This is how they performed mid-year in first grade and mid-year in kindergarten. And we have 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade. So I only went back 3 years because of COVID. Because when I pulled the data from 2021, we didn't have a composite score for DIBELS. We only did certain subtests. So there's no composite score to compare it to. So that's why there's only 3 years worth of data there for the upper grade levels. I did highlight 4th grade because they consistently every year are improving and more kids are being proficient and less kids are at that intensive range. If you look at the current 5th graders, they've kind of bounced a little bit when you're looking at that red. And then our current 6th graders have kind of been flatlined since 4th grade with the fluency. Now I will say once they hit 4th grade, there's only 3 subtests in the assessment itself. So they do oral reading fluency, words read correctly, oral reading fluency accuracy, and maze, which is comprehension. Our oral reading fluency accuracy is through the roof. There's only 1% of our current sixth graders are intensive when we look at oral reading fluency accuracy. Our maze has grown significantly. But the way the composite score is weighted, the weight relies heavier on the oral reading fluency words read correctly than the other parts of the DIBELS subtest. So we're not really seeing the gains in the composite scores when we're seeing the gains in their accuracy and their maze at those grade levels. Something I want to point out that was interesting that I was thinking about today was when I was reviewing the data, the current fourth graders, they're the group that was in kindergarten when the pandemic hit. So I found that interesting to be that they're growing like very, very steadily every year. They're increasing their growth. In our current third graders, they were in kindergarten when we did cohort schooling, the A day and B day. So our current third graders, when they came to kindergarten, they were coming to school 2 days a week. And our current second graders, so hopefully we'll start to see this level out, but COVID would have affected them in preschool. Here's our DIBELS reading growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. So I highlighted kindergarten, first grade, and fourth grade because you can see the percentage jump of the students that are on grade level. So in kindergarten, we went up 12% from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. For our intensive students, they decreased by 8%. Our letter naming fluency had the best results, and our phoneme segmentation fluency in kindergarten is still our area of weakness that we're focusing on. In first grade, we went up by 9% of the students that are on level, and our intensive percentage of students decreased by 12%. So we had the big increase in proficiency and that big decrease in the emergency level. Second grade, there's a 2% difference with the on-level kids, as well as a 7% increase or decrease in the intensive. We're looking at all of the subtests in kindergarten though. The intensive decreased in every single subtest in second grade. Sorry, I said kindergarten. For second grade, every subtest in the intensive decreased across the board. In fifth grade, we were relatively the same, and a slight increase on intensive and a slight decrease on level in sixth grade. And in fourth grade, they had that giant increase of 13% of students being on level. And as I stated before, in fifth and sixth grade, only 1% of the population is intensive on oral reading fluency accuracy, and with significant gains in the maze subtest. Going to iReady Reading, this is looking at the fall to winter data, the fall to winter growth. So we always want to see the green increase and the red decrease. For my notes, I kind of highlighted here third grade, because you can really see how much of the green increased from the fall. But when you look at every grade level, the green increased and the red decreased, and that's exactly what we want to see. We want to see more of it, but those are the trends that we're looking at. From winter to winter, so this is the last 3 winters in a row, you can see that we've been pretty steady. When you look at the green, the mid or above level increased from 2 years ago, decreased from last year. When you look at the early on grade level, we're just 1% over where we were before. The yellow has been pretty steady, and the red is decreasing a little bit, and I always take a look at that to see where we are from year to year to year. This is by grade level, taking a look at the last 3 years where they performed in their winter testing. I highlighted grade 3 just because it stood out to me. All of the green in grade 3 stood out to me as being pretty consistent for all 3 years. Here we're comparing our district to New Jersey as well as the national norm. The national norms are based on 18-19 data, so pre-pandemic. Next year, iReady is coming out with new norms post-pandemic using 22-23 data. So we'll see how things change once we take a look at that. But You can see here that we're pretty on par with the state and the national norms, and pointing out that we definitely have less kids in the dark red. So we're at 5% of students being 3 or more grade levels below, where the state is at 13 and the national norm is at 12%. This is by grade level. So each grade level, our district is the column on the right, in the middle is New Jersey, and on the left is the national norm. I highlighted kindergarten and 5th grade. 5th grade outperformed the national norm as well as the state of New Jersey in all areas that is there. So whether it was mid or above, early on, 1 grade level below, 2 or more grade levels below. So here is our proficiency. According to iReady for 3rd grade, if our students don't show any more growth, then 32% of our students would be proficient on the state test. If our students reach their typical growth, they're saying 40% of the students will be proficient. And if our students meet their stretch growth, 53% of the students will be proficient on NJSLA. Last year, for NJSLA, 21% of our 3rd graders were proficient on the state test. The projected proficiency for 3rd grade last year was relatively similar. It was 33%, 42%, and 53%, which we did fall short of. But looking at what that percentages are, again, this year, they're relatively the same. In 4th grade, if our students don't do any more growth, 37% of them would be proficient on NJSLA. Typical growth is 46, stretch growth is 52%. For NJSLA last year in 4th grade, 43% of our students were proficient on the state test, which was a little bit below the projected proficiency. The projected proficiency last year was 45%, 53% or 59%, depending on their growth in iReady. In 5th grade, our projected proficiency is 48, 57, or 66. Last year, we were 44% of our students were proficient, which was right in between the projected proficiency for no growth and typical growth. The projected proficiency last year was 41%, 51%, and 62%. In 6th grade, our projected proficiency is 42, 47, and 58. Last year for NJSLA, the 6th grade was 34% proficient, and which was below the projected proficiency. Last year, the projected proficiency was 45%, 52%, and 62%. Some takeaways from the DIBELS data as well as the iReady is the phonics instruction is working and impacting data in a positive way. The oral reading fluency accuracy in DIBELS continues to grow in grades 2 through 6. Over 40% of our students are proficient in DIBELS across the board. Our oral reading fluency accuracy, with only having 1% of the population in 5th and 6th grade intensive, is amazing, and our maze scores have increased. Target areas in kindergarten, we're still targeting phoneme segmentation fluency, which I've talked to you guys about in the past. We targeted that in 1st grade heavily, and we've seen the data increase there. So in grades 1 through 3, we're really looking at nonsense word fluency, correct letter sounds, and building the automaticity and the phonics skills, because the DIBELS assessment is 1-minute timed subtests. So that's really checking their fluency in each one of those areas. For iReady, our target areas are vocabulary and comprehension of informational text. So moving over to math, this is our fall to winter data, and I highlighted 6th grade. It's a little hard to see on the wall here, but I highlighted 6th grade because they showed tremendous growth from the fall to our mid-year. They were at 29% of the kids in the green area. They're now up to 56% of the students in the green area. So they showed significant growth. When you look at every grade level shows the green is getting bigger, the orange is getting smaller, and definitely that red is getting smaller too. You're not going to see red until 3rd grade. because students can't be 3 grade levels and below until they're in 3rd grade. So when you're starting to look at it and you're like, okay, you know, in kindergarten we only have green and orange because they can only be 1 grade level below. So you're not going to see that until 3rd grade, that darker red area, to show the 3 or more grade levels below. For math from winter to winter, we're pretty similar to where we were last year at this time, and we are better than where we were 2 years ago. Here's from winter to winter by grade level, and again, I highlighted 6th grade over here because you can see the amount of growth that this group of students has made from 4th grade to 5th grade to 6th grade. It's just been steady on with all of them. How do we compare to the state and to the national norms? Well, we performed better than the state, and we're pretty much on par with the national norms. And again, when we're looking at the red, the students in the intensive, we're below both of them. So we only have 12% of our students in the intensive, where they have 22 and 16%. I highlighted here kindergarten, 1st grade, and 6th grade because they outperformed the state and the national norms for this school year. So you can see across the board, definitely the green is more for us than it is for the state or the national norm. And our projected proficiency for 3rd grade, if we have no more growth, it's only at 21%. If we hit our typical growth, it's 40%, and stretch growth is 48%. Last school year, our 3rd grade, only 39% of our students were proficient on the state test, but we were between the none and the typical projected proficiency. We were at 20, it was almost the same, 21%, 41%, 49% as it was last year. In 4th grade right now, they're showing 17% projected proficiency, 25% or 37%. For NJSLA in the spring, 44% of our students were proficient. Our projected proficiency last year was very similar. It was 19%, 29%, and 44%, and we met that 44% with the projected proficiency. 5th grade almost mimics what it was last year. Again, with 21%, 29%, 36%. 33% of our 5th graders last year were proficient on the state test, which was between, again, the none and the typical growth. So projected proficiency last year was 21%, 36%, and 44%. For 6th grade, we are at 16%, 26%, and 37%. It's very similar this year as it was last year. It was 15, 29, and 37, and we outperformed in 6th grade last year with 40% of our students being proficient on the state assessment. Looking at our math reasoning inventory and math interview, each one of these, if you follow the arrow, that's the cohort data from the year before. So this is an historical view of the last 3 years of taking a look at, here's kindergarten here, so they take the math interview. The blue arrow here is the current 1st graders. So here's where they were last year at this time with the math interview. And we're still looking at, for grade 1, part whole is our area of weakness, and benchmarks of 5 and 10 is our strongest area. In grade 2, we're looking at multi-digit numbers. So we have a new assessment in the winter for 2nd graders, and spatial relationships is our biggest area of weakness there. In grade 3, multiplication and division is stronger than addition and subtraction, which you would think would be opposite because they're just learning the multiplication and division, but it's actually coming out that they're stronger. But in 4th grade, multiplication and division is weaker than addition and subtraction. And in 5th grade, the percentage of students is relatively the same. They're doing fractions, decimals, they're adding and subtraction, multiplying and dividing with those as well. So to take a look at the takeaways from the math, there's been a lot of growth in math. Fluency in the math relationships is solid in the lower grade levels. When we're looking at tiering students, we're starting to look more at the iReady data than we are at the math interview at the lower grade levels. We're creating domain goals to increase overall composite scores in iReady with certain tiers of students. And our target area is still that on-level and above-level students showing more growth, focusing on increasing student accountability and independence and confidence with applying their strategies independently, and working on part-whole relationship building. Questions?
Anyone have questions? Anyone
Sorry. Thank you, Jane.
Welcome.
The first one is, what is the phonics program that we are utilizing? Sorry. What's the phonics program that we are utilizing now?
Benchmark workshop.
Benchmark.
Right, and we're supplementing with some OG techniques and strategies, especially for intervention, but we've also trained more and more of our teachers with OJ.
Okay. And is that more, is the OG throughout K-6, or is that more just in like the higher?
I will say it's throughout. Our interventionists have all been trained. Most of our special ed teachers have been trained. Some of our gen ed teachers have been trained. Because it was, for our gen ed teachers, it was a option. They could decide if they wanted to do it or not. Yep.
And so does benchmark align with the OG type of instruction? It's not, right? It's different from what I remember when we looked at it.
There are pieces of it, but having that knowledge base of OG really helps when a child doesn't understand why a rule is a rule, and being able to have that knowledge and fall back on it. Our coaches have been looking for things to supplement benchmark workshop where we've noted that, we could do better here with this skill or these rules. What do we need to lift this apart up?
Okay. And I know we've had conversations about how that's, something we'll have to look at in the near future with standards.
Yes, we're going to start that process. Actually, I'm going to start that process on Friday with the teachers, starting to talk about looking for our next resource, not for 24-25, but 25-26.
Okay. And I think through the years, comprehension of informational text has always been something.
Always.
And how does benchmark, is that something that you're having to pull as well, to supplement for benchmarks, or is it a
Not really. Well, the benchmark, every unit is aligned to science, social studies, or literature. So they're getting the informational text there, but I feel like it's lacking in where the students read it independently and work with it independently. It's a lot of more discussion based. So we've put in more response to reading type questions and increasing that more. But we haven't really had to supplement. It's more what they're doing with the text.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. And I'm assuming that that's the way that the program is presenting it.
It is, yes. And that's where they were like, this is great, but they're never responding to reading in writing. So then we put that in the curriculum. In 5th and 6th grade, they don't use benchmark workshop. They're using more novels and short passages, but also, Ted, what's it called? Scholastic? Scope. They're using that to bring in. But they're really, because we've been having these conversations, is really trying to make sure we're balancing out that literature and that nonfiction.
Right. It's a 50-50.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And do you happen to know, you might not know this offhand, how many districts in New Jersey utilize iReady?
Oh my gosh, we were just looking it up because.
It's okay. I was just curious because I don't know. I mean,
when we asked,
to other districts, like I was just interested in how many districts actually in the state.
when we asked for that question, we honestly didn't get like a direct answer from the company because I've been asking that question. But when you look at the New Jersey, it's 25,000 students, which is a lot.
Right.
Of students in the state that are on iReady. And we have more and more districts reaching out to me in the past 2 weeks. I don't know what is happening, asking if they can come visit us or talk to somebody about iReady or the Ready Math program because they're looking at to implement it in their district. So I'm not sure if there's a push or if they're all just looking for new resources since the new standards are coming out.
Okay. And from what you said tonight, from what we're looking at the presentation, we didn't have any grade levels that their projections for NJSLA. I mean, they're the lowest percentage in sixth grade. So I don't understand how,
We've been,
I'm not familiar with that rate.
yes, so we've been having those conversations. The one thing iReady doesn't have is them responding in writing and explaining their thinking. So one thing that we've noticed is an area of weakness on the state assessment and our unit assessments is when students have to respond in writing for math as well as ELA.
Okay.
So we're working to strengthen that through enrichment right now, actually.
Okay, well, that makes, I mean, that explains why there's a start. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else?
I have no question, not specifically related to the presentation, but like, if you go back to slide 19.
I don't know which one that is. Hold on.
That's the sixth grade, that's the growth.
Is that the one that was
Yeah,
on?
fall and winter.
Okay.
But obviously, you can see, when you look year over year, the trend, you know, we're trending up slightly. How in depth are you able to monitor, or how in depth are we able to monitor the students that fall into those categories, and what type of instruction are they receiving in comparison to, you know, the student that falls in the other tier? Like, how one-off is the instruction? Like, how does that work in the classroom? Just trying to understand.
So they're all on their individual path, which iReady sets for them based on their diagnostic. But beyond that, the teachers can pull, there's grouping reports for every class and every grade level, and they put the students in groups depending on how they performed. And then you can say, it'll tell you this is what they did well, this is what they need, here's the lessons that you can do to strengthen those areas of weakness. So we do that through tutoring, we do that in based off of the standards as well. So it'll tell you if what lessons they're ready for and what standards they're ready for and which ones they're not ready for yet and what you should do with them.
So based on this data, you're able to, like a student that, you know, you identify is falling behind, just that, like a red flag at the bottom on that,
Yep.
that individual student, and you'll provide resources to them tailored to their needs as opposed to.
Right.
Those populations get segregated from one another, or they're still not completely segregated?
Right, it depends on what grade level and what we're doing, because we have the intervention rooms in grades 4, 5, and 6. And in the intervention rooms, they're using the intervention materials from iReady. In tutoring, before school and after school tutoring, I give all of the teachers, here's the student, here's the grade, here's the tier they're in, and here's the group in iReady that they're in. So then they can pull what they're going to be working on them for tutoring from iReady.
And likewise, the students that are overachieving do the same.
They can, the teachers have the option to pull that, because even if they're in group 5, which is the highest group you can be in, it tells you this is what they can do, here's next steps for them. So they could pull that as a resource for their small group. It's a choice, because when you look at our curriculum, they have choices in how they want to handle what they do at the small group table.
The other question I had, you might think it's one question, but I know you do a lot of, you know, professional development and a lot of seminars. Does anybody ever, I know we look at the data compared to the rest of our country, but do you ever see comparisons of how our students are comparing to students in other countries?
I have not.
Right.
I don't know how I would do that.
Well, I don't know either, and I'm like, is there ever any discussion, any of these things about?
I mean, I feel like there's studies that United States as a whole compared to other countries, but like our student population compared to other countries.
Right. So that's not really a topic of discussion, anything that, well,
Not really, to be honest with you. I mean, we kind of talk about it, but our hands are tied with.
well, I was wondering, like, that's, you know, if there's someone in your industry that looks at trends in other parts of the world, you know, as far as, you know, what they're doing.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I'm looking at you, Mr. Walton, with all the journals and stuff that we get. Like, and I know Michelle does a lot of reading and, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
That's it? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.